All right, very warm welcome to all of you joining for this session organized by the Global Supply Chain Council. My name is Max Henry. I'm going to be your host and the moderator of the discussion for today's theme, which is all around warehouse and automation and AI. We've called this session Warehouse Automation and AI, Building Resilient, Scalable Fulfillment Operations. So for some of you who are joining us from different parts of Asia, we also have people from the Middle East and Europe with a time difference. I want to remind to all of you that this session is being recorded. So if you miss part of it, you will be able to rewatch the replay, which will be made available in the next 24 hours. Another thing also I want to highlight is that we want to keep this discussion as interactive as we can. So if you have any questions, you can click on the question mark button located at the bottom of the screen, and we will prioritize those questions, even if we have prepared a couple of topics already for ourselves. So feel free to ask that question by clicking the question mark, and you can ask anything related to your own operations, but you can also ask more specific questions related to the topic, and we'll be happy with the panelists to answer those questions. This event, again, is just going to be 55 minutes. So if you have another meeting or call starting at the top of the hour, no worries. We will give you a few minutes before that so you can get ready. So just stay with us until the very end of the discussion. So without further ado, I'd like maybe just to get started first by having the panelists introducing themselves. And maybe we'll get started with you, Michael. Just tell us who you are, what you do, where you are, and then we'll go around the screen and get everybody to say hello. Yeah. Go ahead, Michael. Welcome.
Hi, thanks, Max. I'm Michael Currie. I'm the leader of Fling AI. We're a warehouse stock automation platform. So we work with warehouses throughout Southeast Asia to automate their inventory stock check process with drones and cameras and AI. Welcome.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. We have Anirban also joining us. Welcome, Anirban. Make sure to unmute you.
Hi, everybody. This is Anirban. I'm from India. I'm taking care of end-to-end supply chain and transportation warehousing for a company called Century Ply.
Very good. Thank you. We have Arnel also joining us. Welcome, Arnel. Go ahead. Yeah.
Thanks, Max. I'm Arnel Gamboa. I'm the Vice President for Logistics under Ace Hardware Philippines. Obviously, I'm from Manila, and Ace Hardware is the biggest hardware cooperative around the world. Nice to be here. Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, we have also Sachin joining us. Welcome, Sachin. Go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you, Max. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. Sachin from Bangalore, India. Currently working with AkzoNobel. It's a Dutch paints and coatings company, leading the supply chain analytics and design for them globally. Nice to see you all.
Great. Okay, we have Shandan as well joining us. Welcome, Shandan. Go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you, Max. Good to be here. And I'm based in Bangalore, India. I'm a freelance consultant with various agency. Plus, I am a startup enthusiast based in India. Where I've been associated with few startup companies in their startup age. Actually, over to you, Max.
Okay, thank you again. All right, if you're just joining us, I want to remind to all of you that this is going to be an interactive session. So if you have any question, feel free to click on the question mark button located at the bottom of the screen. We will prioritize those questions. So we will take them as they get posted by all of you. But let's get started first with maybe the big picture around warehouse and automation. I just want to get a feel from each of you. What does warehouse automation mean in your organization today? And how has that definition evolved over the past few years? So let's maybe start very general about warehouse automation. Yeah. Anybody would like to take this? Yeah. Okay, Sachin.
Yeah, I can go first. Then the rest of the participants can pitch in. So I think we all have seen the evolution of warehouses just from a stocking point to the more decision enabler, where we have seen goods just being stocked in a warehouse to a point where warehouses are kind of being able to take the decisions, right? These decisions have kind of come in the form of delivery optimization, the processes in the warehouse kind of getting optimized, getting more and more automated, and requiring lesser and lesser human intervention. So if you have to put it in a perspective, the kind of mechanized form and shape is kind of evolving. The human intervention is reducing, and now warehouses are kind of moving from a place just not as a stocking point, but enablers to make the supply chain more resilient, more intelligent, and taking decisions on the go. So that's my understanding in terms of the topic.
Okay, Anirban, yeah.
Yeah, so I'll add what Sachin said, that going forward, what is happening that for supply chain logistics, speed of execution is becoming a big topic. So no more there is a e-commerce; it is now quick commerce. So entire India is now is intoxicated with 5 minute, 7 minute, and 10 minute deliveries. So if you have to reach to that kind of tat, and if you have to talk about that kind of service level, automation is the only option, because at a point of time every human or every capex investment, there is a limit. Beyond the point, you have to ensure that it is mechanized, it's automated, and another it's AI driven, so that we can eliminate the manual portion and we can ensure that deserve the desired service level. So for me, it's the speed which is driving the automation in warehousing.
Thank you, Anirban. Yeah, Arnel?
Yeah, thanks, Max. I'll just build on the points made by Anirban and Sachin. So I think traditionally warehouse automation basically speaks of mechanization, as mentioned by my colleagues here, and it's really more of the physical flow of goods. I think in the past we used to view automation as in the sense of warehouse management systems. You have portable data terminals, you have barcode scanning, and so on. So it was more of technology enabling physical goods flow and promoting efficiencies as well. But over time, I think today, as we already know, there's more an integrative factor when you look at automation. It's more end to end. You see more information flow being used most of the time, and it comes hand in hand with digitalization. So sometimes you have artificial intelligence as well, making a pivotal role in terms of enabling more intelligent systems inside the warehouse. So to speak, as we see automation today in the warehouse operations, it's really more of digitalization with intelligent or smart networks. Thank you, Max. Back to you.
Okay, sounds good. So maybe let me move on another question. From your experience, what has been the primary driver behind warehouse automation investment? Is it labor shortage, speed, cost, or something else? Anyone? Yeah.
Max, yeah. I can just put the automation needs, I can put it in three paragraphs basically. One is physical automation, one is digital requirement, or one process automation. So physical automation, if there is a need, that would be robot. You have all the old conventional systems like conveyor, AS and RS pickers, or various other machineries which does that physical activity. And whereas digital system where you want to integrate is the need is basically on system WMS, and also the AI driven RFID and IoT and various other functional which supports the warehouse integration. And also the process automation is where you have the AI which is integrated, where you do automated picking and inventory replenishment system, and all these, which increases the efficiency and reduces error. Basically, that's where I look at it.
Okay, thank you, Shanda. Yeah, Michael, you can go ahead on the definition of the primary drivers. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. I agree with Chandon's delineation of the types of automations and then what might drive each of those. I would just say that in my conversation with warehouse decision makers, cost is absolutely the number one thing. They're always looking for ways to save costs. Let's get real here. That's what everybody's interested in. We can talk about all kinds of other benefits, but the decision makers tend to be people with P&L responsibility on the warehouse as a cost center, and to get people engaged on other reasons to adopt automation, like efficiency and other higher level or indirect benefits, that can be tricky. You'd have to go a higher level up to the CFO or some other responsibility that cares about that. And so what we find is for many warehouses, they might be leaving some potential efficiencies, automation projects that have positive NPV on the table and not implemented because they don't see past just cost saving as a driver. And I should say safety. That's another one that's in there, but certainly cost saving is the big one, especially labor cost, which is the easiest to calculate, right? You multiply number of hours by wage, and easiest to calculate, easiest to understand, easiest to get across all the decision makers, but again, maybe missing out. So that's where I see automation drivers.
Thank you, Michael. Yes, Sachin?
What I want to bring is a perspective that the drivers can also be regional specific, right? So let's say if we talk about North America and Europe, where the wages are slightly on the higher side as compared to Asia, there the primary driver may be a cost, right? But let's say if we talk about Asian countries, here the speed can be a driver. It's also a factor of the industry you operate with. If you have to give deliveries in few minutes to few hours, you will more likely to focus and invest on the speed as compared to cost. So to make it short, it's a factor of region, industry, and then the priorities of the organization and the industry and the region they operate with.
Okay, Anil?
Yeah, thank you, Max. Again, building on the thoughts of Mike and Sachin, I would tend to agree that cost might be the most urgent driver when it comes to automation, especially in the countries mentioned by Sachin, first world countries where labor and real estate cost is very high, breaking the ceiling up to the roof. But I would like to mention as well that I think one of the emerging drivers of automation today is also the rising requirement when it comes to speed to market and changing consumer demands as well. So this is probably what we can term as the Amazon effect. So if you would recall, maybe about 2 decades ago, Amazon made a promise of delivering 48 hours in any city or in any area in the United States. But however, that changed dramatically over the years. It's now down to within 24 hours. And every customer today, if you can imagine, wants their package delivered to them to their doorsteps as fast as possible. So I think this is the major driver today when it comes to automation, being able to adjust to this changing market demands. And likewise, I think what I can add as well is being able to scale and become flexible enough to adjust to sudden changes as well from what we see today as of the present. As I've said, we're having more demanding customers, so to speak, who would like their parcels or deliveries come to their doorstep within a few minutes after ordering. That's all. Thank you, Max.
Thank you, Anil. Yeah, Anirban, do you want to add something? Yeah.
Almost everything said. I'll pick up one point that the elimination of manual calculation or the manual information management. So what happens with the automation that most of the working are became a data-driven discussion and data-driven decision, resulting which the accuracy of the task increase. So you can imagine that one wrong picking or one wrong handling of the product can again cost a company a 2x without any revenue generation. So from that point of view, it's helping the organization to ensure that the data is coming from the system and which is very easily manageable.
Okay.
That's my pick. Yeah.
Thank you, Anirban. I wanted to, there's already some questions, but we had a question which is kind of relate to what someone is asking. Warehouse automation can be a huge investment. So how can organizations start small? What are some of the bite-sized steps to test automation before scaling? Yeah, Michael?
Right. I deal with this in my conversations where some solutions have very long payback periods. Full ASRS deployment has 5-10 year payback periods. So it's a very big step to take, and validating that that's going to make a difference, especially we've heard from others talking about there's changing consumer demands, there's changing requirements. So investing in that amount of fixed equipment is again quite dangerous for some facilities. And so how to begin in a quick way, I think that's a very recognizable demand that we're seeing there in the warehouse market from providers. And for us, it's my company with Fling, we really try hard to offer a service that requires as little change as possible. And I think other vendors would probably say the same with some types of solutions where you have a system that will work with their labeling, work with their racking, and simply be able to be deployed rack by rack. So you start with a particular zone, make sure it works, and perhaps in one warehouse, and then in that whole region start to deploy it. So if there's solutions that can be deployed in phases, then that makes it more possible to determine if it's going to work.
Anybody else? Sachin, Anil? Feel free to go ahead and unmute you.
Yeah. I think one other option is, rather than investing heavily, is to rely the services of 3PL, 4PL partners, start integration with them, start small and see if it works for your business, your use case. Because with that, you will be able to take the benefits of economies of scale, which the 3PL, 4PL partner is expert in, and then see if that works, then you can build upon that and start investing as per yourself. If the business case basically permits you to go ahead and invest. So that's my take on that.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, I guess let's talk about ROI. When you talk about ROI, there's a lot to be understood. Basically, it's the ROI generally goes into saving money. So it's nothing but you whatever the investment you do, it has to some point of time, it has to come back as a profit, which you need to see on a large scale, or even on a going forward, on a consequent and non-disruption process, basically. So add to that, this predictive analytics, when we talk about predictive analytics, which now takes over robotics models, which does forecasting and demand planning with accuracy of about 95%. Why am I discussing this? Because this adds value to your demand planning and purchasing ability of on a long-term basis. When you do demand planning accuracy at 90%, you do buy bridge buys. Like when you do this, you lock buying for a long period when the price is down. So your saving is from this automation is not just limited to the warehouse. It actually goes back to your whole process, in the sense which gets integrated into the system. So when you say automation, the automation just doesn't add up value at warehouse alone. The stock gets flowed into your accounts, which goes into your planning of your manpower also, which you get a rather clear-cut understanding what is the labor requirement at each point, and also your turnover, the sales realization, which comes accurately closer to your demands.
Okay, thank you very much, Anand. Yeah. And there's a question also about ROI. How do you justify the ROI of automation in low labor cost countries like Vietnam or India. Feel free to comment. Anirban, yeah, you wanted to add, and Michael after, yeah.
So I think there are a line need to be drawn between mechanized handling and the automation. So when the labor we are discussing, one is that pure physical handling part, and another is that other than physical movement of the product, there are other activities involved in the warehouse. So there, the automation is not going to have a much bigger gap versus the cost involved for the people involved, because those are not the people who are coming at a cheap cost even in India or in Vietnam. So definitely that delta is not big. And when we are talking about physical activity, that is not automation, it is mechanized way of handling the product. So when I'm putting a forklift and if I'm replacing, a pool of labor, that for me is not an automation per se, that for me is a mechanized handling of my product. So that is a fine line need to drawn in that. And when I'm talking about the labor cost is going forward, and we are seeing very drastic change, that as we are growing as an economy, the cheap labor is becoming a myth over a period of time, because we are also socially responsible, and we are ensuring, when we are talking about sustainability and ESG, we are ensuring that the minimum labor cost, and for that the standard uh, you know working environment we are providing. So that comes at a cost. So over a period of time, maybe another year or so, we'll realize that mechanized handling versus a complete manual handling, there'll be very less gap will be there. So that is my submission, Max.
Yeah, thank you, Anirban. Yeah, Michael?
Yeah, I agree. I think there are definitely special challenges in justifying automation in a low labor cost country. How to deal with that with Fling, our inventory solution. That's the example that I have. With this, certainly the justification in a high labor cost country is very clear. Saves labor cost. In a low labor cost country, we talk about things like goods freezing time. So the amount of time that they have to completely freeze the warehouse for a stock take might be 2 or 3 days. That's revenue lost. That's productivity lost. If this can be reduced to 6 hours, then that's a benefit already, regardless of the labor cost. Other things like consistency, accuracy. I've been in warehouses where there's 100 workers and they're not paid very much, and they're being asked to do a super accurate stock check, right? They all have clipboards and they're all checking things, but how accurate is that? Is this rack being done in the same way as the next rack? And year to year, are all the people different? So maintaining consistency, accuracy, that's very challenging. You can throw as many people as you want at the problem. You might not necessarily get a good result. And then finally, safety, which is a big requirement globally from many brands. They're starting to say you can't put workers high up at high heights. And I'm sure in other applications, there's lots of other safety concerns with having people all around inside the warehouse. So those are ways to justify in lower labor cost countries.
Okay, yeah. Arnel?
Yeah, let me add something quickly. I think, yes, I agree. When it comes to the ROI, whatever you call it, that present value, payback, or break-even point, it's really difficult. That's an ongoing challenge that we have in emerging countries like Vietnam, the Philippines. And as an advocate of Six Sigma and Lean, I think it's always good to start small, to have a pilot or a phase implementation, as mentioned by Michael. And therefore, what I'm saying here is that we don't have to start one time, big time, as in goods to man strategy, or you have the ASRS, which are all very strategic and very big investments in terms of infrastructure. Perhaps we can start with your pain points. If you're having some trouble in terms of the pick and pack operations, you're having some issues with put away, you're having some problems in terms of keeping. So there are many small stuff that we can start with. Like, for instance, we can have tote boxes, we can have roll cages, we can have put to light systems that are economical. By the way, as of today, the prices of putting putting them on or installing them has gone down over the years. So there's still a way in how we can automate and start small, as I've mentioned, pilot it, learn from that pilot, learn if there are some mistakes that go along the way. And then eventually when we scale up, we're able to apply those learnings as well as we grow the business. Thank you, Max. Back to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Arnel. Okay, I want to remind again all of you that you can ask questions at any time. Just click on the question mark button located at the bottom of your screen. We will take those questions as they come. Well, I see there's more questions coming in and we're going to take them, but there's still plenty of time for you to ask your own questions. So go ahead. All right, let's move on to the next question coming also from the audience. Let me put the next one. I think this is an interesting question from coming from Yanisa, who's asking, what's the biggest reason automation projects fail in APAC? And that probably could apply to other regions as well. What's your take on this? What do you think? Yes, Sachin?
Yeah, I think in order to ensure that we have a successful implementation of any of the technologies, there are two other pillars that plays an equally important role, right? This first is establishing a governance process around it to ensure that it gets successfully implemented. There is a successful hypercare period for it, and then ensure that it gets smoothly transitioned to business as usual. Right? The second element which plays a very important role is people. Ensuring that the trainings are given, people have a good know-how of how to manage things in system versus they were used to dealing with it. A systemic change management approach to dealing the things is very important. So I think in order to cut short the answers, people, process, tech, the golden triangle plays a very important role. Not only in any automation projects, it can be any successful implementations. The other two pillars are equally important.
Thank you, Sachin. Yeah, Anirban?
I'll take a step ahead and I'll say that sometimes we automate chaos instead of fixing it first. So end of the automation is a change management, and sometimes when it goes wrong, there is already a broken process which get automated, and we just multiplies inefficiency in the end of the day, and it goes in the name of automation that because of automation such things are happening. So to avoid it, actually first streamline and standardize the workflows before layering an automation on top of that. So, and it's not like otherwise it's just a roboting the mess and still it will have the similar kind of chaos. So we need to be very sure when we are doing the automation that my process in place, it's set. Then we go for the automation. So that is my submission.
Thank you, Anirban. Yeah, Shandan? Go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, the biggest issue will be with this is capital intensive process. Basically, if you want to automate something, you need to definitely invest a little bit, and then again, it goes back with the founder or the owner of the company whether you need that money. I mean, they really don't look at the long-term profitability out of the automation in the initial stages. But also there is, some hurdles like system compatibility and data silos. They won't have much of a data which is historical if they really want to, because building up automation requires a lot of data integration, which is also there is an issue. And also there is a middleware compatibility wherein you need the APIs, the plugins. If you really want to automate, you need a lot of APIs to plug in, and may not be compatible with other APIs which they have. And also the workforce transition, that is the biggest challenges when you have a workforce transition, a resistance to change. These are that definitely, in these areas, this is the biggest bottleneck which I feel.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, we actually have a question about resistance from the workforce on automation, but let's finish with that question first. Michael, and then Arno. Yeah, go ahead, Michael. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I really found myself nodding my head with Anirban's comment there about how if you're automating a broken process, you're just accelerating the problem. And I would say that can happen when, especially in this day and age with AI, there tends to be a belief that AI is magic. Either we're kind of our worst enemy, some of the AI vendors, because we like, AI is an attractive thing. People like to hear about it, but we have to be careful not to oversell it, because it's not going to work when the data coming in is, invalid or problematic, or the process itself is wrong. So, the classic garbage in, garbage out. So if we have a operations team that have an unrealistic expectation that the AI will gloss over all their problems and solve it without any changes to their process, and then that engenders a resistance to change even the most trivial parts of their process. And I think in supply chain, it's particularly vulnerable to resistance to change, because every link in the supply chain is vulnerable to the upstream and the downstream. They don't want to change their labels. They don't want to change their way of doing things for fear of having to get consent from several other parties. So there's a temptation to ask the vendors to bend over backwards to make it work with their exact existing process, and that tends to be the place that automation projects fail.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, Arnold?
Yeah, I think Shandan and Michael were spot on. They've mostly covered everything. But just to add on their thoughts, yeah, I think the number one thing that I observe in terms of project failures would be, if there's such a thing as a product market fit, I think there's also something called as a problem solution fit. So I think it boils down in terms of defining what's a problem statement. Some companies would, dare to conduct a project, an AI automation project, just for the sake of having it. So because maybe it's a regional direction, China did it, so therefore Vietnam and Philippines, maybe even Malaysia has to do it, without really looking at what's a real problem. So that's one thing. And then secondly, I think, as mentioned by Shandan, there's a lot of data, and we have to do our proper research in having said that. So data has to be collected properly, and it has to point us to the right direction. Otherwise, we risk investing in terms of the automation project itself. And as pointed by Michael, it might be just accelerating or automating the errors that we do if we make a mistake. And then the second part, as mentioned again by Michael and Shandan, is the resistance to change. Well, again, I think people, when they look at technology in general, AI also in particular, there is that fear that they might lose their jobs. So I think that is also something that we have to consider along the way when it comes to passive resistance and getting the proper buy-in in terms of automation projects. Back to you, Max. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it all makes sense. Yeah. So let's move on again to the next question. So Nanda is asking, when deciding investments on automation, focusing on warehouse, of course, projects, what do you think is the biggest risk one needs to review? So again, when deciding, when reviewing, and when considering investment on warehouse automation. Yeah. Anirban, yeah.
Very close question to my heart. So we try to see the maturity of the automation or the use cases. So we generally don't experiment. We try to see what is the benefit of similar kind of industry or similar kind of geography had gained out of that particular solution, and then we work for that, because one is experiment, another word is experience. So we live with experience rather than in experiment. So that is our risk mitigation way. We try to see the past experience and we take decision rather than experimenting and then with a chance of fail. So that is the little conservative approach we take.
Okay. Anybody else has your own thought about this? Want to comment? No? Okay. All right. Let's move on to the next question. Again, if you have any other question for our panelists, feel free to click on the question mark button located at the bottom of the screen, and we will take those questions as they get here. So we have more coming in. Let's move on to the next one. Okay. Brian is asking, he's saying, we still have legacy systems in our warehouse. How to start with AI without a big overhaul? Anybody would like to respond? Yeah, Michael?
Well, we see this not just with the legacy software systems, but also with the, like, for example, the Wi-Fi connection in the warehouse, the IT. Basically, all of this, there can be challenges with the IT team getting them to approve a new system coming in and integrating with that. There's cybersecurity questions about this, and yeah, integration. How do you integrate that? So I think selecting a solution that can stand on its own and operate with an independent source of data and still deliver value to the warehouse can be a foot in the door for automation. You know, there's vendors like Fling and others that have this where you can start collecting data and feed that into prediction engines and recommender systems to give you that efficiency benefit without having, yeah, I understand, pulling out your entire WMS and installing a completely different one. That's, you know, an organization ending event, essentially. That's very, very hard to do. But picking modules and adding them can be possible.
Okay. Anybody else would like to? Yeah, Shandan, yeah, go ahead.
Well, my one point I have actually, I think basically when you start automizing your warehouse, I think the first one to do is a compartmentalization. Actually, when you do a compartmentalization, you distribute among what are the most, you know, the task, like what is needs to be automized on the first basis, and basically, and also the data availability for automation, because without data you won't be able to do any automation. And compartmentalization will help you to analyze the urgency and the need for doing this, you know, where legacy system, I mean, changing where you need change in the legacy system. I think that needs to be identified on a priority basis.
Okay. Anybody else would like to comment? Have you maybe tested some AI pilots or tools inside the warehouse and you want to share your views about this? Yeah, Anirban, yeah.
So this is basically handling change management, and it starts with communication. That transparent communication is the key, because we as a human being, we are skeptical, and when we are bringing automation to the ground level team also will be scared in the, you know, let's be honest with each other. So if we able to communicate properly that this is how going to help their life, this is how going to bring more productivity from each one of them, and how we can assure them that there is not a risk to their employability, I think that is the 80% of the job done. Because automation is 20%. When I'm talking implementation, 20% is technology, 80% is the human. How you are managing the people around it for changing from old practice to new practice, for adaptation of the new practice, and believing and practicing the new practice going forward. So it is never be a force, it is more of a collaboration, communication, and ensuring that each one individual is protected. I think it's a more of a managing human rather than, you know, managing the tools.
So Anirban, maybe I'll stay with you. I mean, we've seen a couple of tools emerging, you know, AI tools specifically, things like predictive slotting to robot tasking. What kind of application have you seen, you know, in your maybe your operation, or maybe with the 3PLs, or within, you know, your own region? Have you seen some interesting AI application being used or being tested inside the warehouse? Yeah.
Yeah. So without taking any name of any service provider, I will say that WMS, the warehouse management system, there are a lot of automations are coming, because there are a big pool of labor, or the handling, physical handling used to happen over there. So WMS is taking a big portion, and emerging of the e-commerce, handling such, you know, small cargos, because e-commerce is not about bulk, it is about break bulk, and how you know, manage the smaller cargos. So there are a lot of automations are coming, and in India geography also, there are a lot of proactive movement from manual to where proper automated WMS is coming. And another part where visibility and loadability is concerned, the TMS, the transport management solution, are also coming in a big way. So for me, these are the two things, because I'm leaving the demand planning and the material planning aside, because that is anyway part of the planning portion. That is not to directly with warehouse. End of the day, when we are deciding that this amount of inventory I'm going to keep inside my warehouse, from there warehouse automation starts, at how I'm going to handle, how faster I can do the turnaround from my receiving to my dispatches, and from dispatches how fast I can ensure that I reach to my customer, and customer should have information of each stage of operation. Where is my cargo, where is my product? I think there the warehousing automations are taking a lot of space, and we are working actually on that. We have
Okay.
implemented as well.
Thank you. Yeah. Chandan or Sachin? Go ahead, Sachin.
Yeah, I'll quickly highlight one use case with respect to the WMS implementation, which Anirban just mentioned. So these days, the WMSs are coming up in a shape and form that they are very well integrated into the planning systems as well. Just to keep one use case very short, so working with Amazon Fresh, we were regularly getting the complaints of rotten bananas, right? So that was recorded in the quality system. That the customers are kind of asking for claims or refunds for the rotten bananas. But the WMSs were very well integrated in such a way that the information was flowing from those quality customer complaints data to the WMS to ensure that we do a regular check cycle count as well as the physical checks of the bins in which the bananas are kept to ensure that we don't end up passing it to the another set of customers. So as Anirban was saying, the WMSs are kind of getting very well integrated with the different applications within the company, not only the SAPs, but also the customer facing points to ensure that the information flow is seamless.
Okay, that's interesting. Michael, just want to get your feel about this. I mean, where do you see the biggest opportunity in the warehouse when it comes to AI tools, and maybe also where do you see the biggest appetite from those warehouse users when they look and consider some kind of AI applications? Yeah.
Well, certainly the first stage of warehouse automation AI came with the mechanization that we talked about at the very beginning of this chat. And I think now we're talking about digitization, the digitization of this information so that we can gain efficiencies in prediction, in goods positioning. And for that, I think you need good data. You need a foundation of good data about where the goods are in your warehouse, a real-time understanding of that. And I mean, again, from my perspective, I see the information that's flowing into the WMS from data collection. I'm struggling not to mention, the work that my company, others are doing for stock cycle counting and stock optimization. That is a sort of a foundational piece of information, and then that flows into the optimization systems that I see warehouses are starting to be very interested in. I have less experience with the e-commerce warehouses where it's more cross-docked. I think others here have better expertise there, but when it comes to very palletized warehouses, I think a better understanding of where your goods are at a given moment and having that flow into improved efficiencies is where I'm seeing a great entry point for adopting automation and AI in the warehouse.
Okay, yeah, Shandan?
I think the warehouse automation basically play a very good role in where you have the Q-commerce and e-commerce, where the slotting machines and the cobots, which gets used with the positioning and as well as retrieval. Where usually when you have an AI, you have a digital twins also, like your placements of racks, everything is basically you can see in the system, where I can remotely see what is the stock available in which rack. So these are very important for me. Even I mean, yeah, as Anirban said, the demand planning, which he is not touched upon. But when I derive a demand planning, my first thing I look at is what is my stock in the warehouse, and if there is a space requirement for the space. I mean, warehouse expansion. That's where I really look at where my demand is. Where is my warehouse space? Do I need another further warehouse space? Do I enhance my existing warehouse space or the vertical up where the storage can be possible? So these are the kind of the thoughts which comes into picture when you do a AI warehouse system.
Okay, interesting. All right, we have 10 more minutes before we wrap up, so I'd like to take more questions from the audience. This is a question from Aisha asking, how do you manage resistance? I think we kind of talked about it earlier, but maybe you want to add something on this. How do you manage resistance from warehouse staff when introducing robots or AI? Yeah, Michael? Yeah, then after Anirban, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to say to them, the operations teams, that AI and robotics are not here to replace all the people. They're here to support them by taking over the repetitive, time-consuming tasks like, counting, scanning, reporting for stock check, for example, or for goods put away, picking. It means that humans can focus on more valuable work. So handling exceptions, solving problems, improving quality control. And that should improve the satisfaction and retention if we're talking about questions at a management level as well. So the goal isn't necessarily to reduce headcount in every AI project, but to reallocate human time towards tasks that bring people the most value. Now, of course, in practice, there are projects that have a goal to reduce headcount, but I think the messaging to the line workers we have to be careful about how these projects are discussed, for sure, because really it's an empowering thing to be respecting these workers and saying that they can do more high-level tasks. So I think that's the way to talk about it. And you have to be very careful with how you talk about it and which audience you're talking about it, and not being so celebratory for every project.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Yeah, Anirban, and then maybe Arnel after.
Yeah, I'll go just what Michael said, that it is very sensitive. So it's very sensitive topic. We have to ensure that our communications are chosen very carefully, and it has to be transparent. Message to pass on basically for them. It is not a labor replacement. It is kind of a workforce augmentation where we are trying to empowering the team by reducing their physical strain, improving the overall team's productivity and the accuracy. And what for them? So as an individual, if we can ensure that we pass on this message that this is enabling their upskilling their technocentric roles. So today they are without technology, tomorrow they will be with technology, and their role is changing from normal to a technocentric role where their employability will be much more higher compared to their peers. So in an organization who are having a automated warehouse, or the warehouse where you are having some amount of automation, the employability of that particular operation center will be more compared to a non-mechanized or AI driven places. So that is their individual growth. So, and you have to be genuine, and you have to walk the talk, because it cannot happen that what you say in front of the force, you go back to your drawing room or you go back to your boardroom and you say something different. I think then the purpose is defeated. So basic transparency, basic trust, and walk the talk. I think that helps to manage this kind of situation. It is sensitive. It actually can impact to your business. Handle with care, manage with maturity.
Okay. Arnel, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Max. So I couldn't agree more with Anirban and Michael. This is a recurring theme that we always have whenever we have forums with government and industry associations. So indeed, it's a difficult task to take in terms of explaining this to people whenever we have automation projects. The resistance is very high, obviously, because of the fear of losing their jobs. But I think I would tend to agree with the first approach that was mentioned by Anirban. We need to have a clear sense of direction. There has to be effective communication when it comes to explaining what will be their roles in the future. So, in that sense, again, echoing what just Michael has mentioned, we have to explain to them that what we're trying to improve is basically the routine tasks, the error prone ones, the no brainer ones, the ones that can be delegated to machines. And for that matter, I think we can call them cobots, collaborative robots as well. And we can rest assured, assure them that in the future, we will be upskilling them, reskilling them even in terms of a higher value function or roles. These are roles that will be more related to strategic tasks, to higher level thinking, creative and critical thinking, and maybe perhaps in the future, taking care of relationships, which AI would not be able to do as well. So I think in the end, in short, it's just assuring them that they will be still there doing different jobs, different roles. And for sure, these roles are going to shift. They're going to change something of better value. And I think they will be in a better place eventually. So we just have to be clear with that. Thank you, Max.
Okay, thank you. All right, we've got 4 more minutes. I'd like to take maybe a final question before we wrap up. This is a question from Sanjeev asking, what are the pitfalls to avoid when trying to implement automation and AI in warehousing? How do we drive right adoption among the users? What you guys think? Yeah, Michael?
Yeah, I would say that we covered that I think quite effectively earlier when talking about what is the biggest risk, and finding the problem solution fit, as Arnold was saying. But yeah, I think it's an excellent question, and it's certainly top of mind when a procurement a person is deciding to do something. They don't want to look bad, right? You don't want to lose face when you're implementing a big project and all eyes are on the project. And you certainly, if you can avoid it, you'd want to avoid problems before they crop up. And I would say, from my experience, getting as many stakeholders as possible involved in the project with their input and consent. The last thing you want in a big organization is to try to implement a project and then some person who's uninvolved can complain because they don't feel like they had any input or involvement in the project. If you can get everyone's involvement and feedback, especially at the executive level, then there's a higher likelihood that you're not going to have naysayers trying to detract from the project on an ongoing basis. And I would also say having a sort of defined success that is realistic and that everyone agrees with. If we can improve by this amount, then that's a success, rather than having people develop unrealistic expectations of success. We've seen projects where they expect the AI to be 100% perfect from day one and everything to be way better than before in every dimension. And when it isn't, then the doomsayers and the naysayers come in and it gets problematic. So if you can plan ahead and get that settled ahead of time, that can be a great way to avoid those pitfalls.
Yeah, thank you. Anirban?
I will go with I talked sometimes on this, that good to have and must to have. So sometimes what happened that the automation became over automation, or it is called wrong tech syndrome. So what is needed for me? And once you identify that, start small with ROI backed pilots, and then let's business needs drive the tech, not the hype. Because sometimes what happened that we get into a hype that yes, automation, which is the ultimate solution. And as Michael said, it's not a magic. There are a lot of genuine effort need to put behind each automation project to bring it success. So it's a hard work. So once you do in small, then let the business taste it, get it experienced, and go for more. That is the idea, perhaps, for automation.
Yeah. Thank you, Anirban. Yeah. Very quickly, we've got 1 more minute. Arnel and Shandan, go ahead.
Yeah.
I want to give you final thoughts here.
Thank you, Max. I'd like to offer a counterpoint here. I think it's really more of the myth or misconception in terms of automation or AI being the silver bullet, the ultimate messiah in terms of solving all the problems in the warehouse. I think sometimes people have this mentality of being over dependent whenever these automation projects crop up. They feel that as soon as we implement this automation, their problems are all going to be solved. They're all going to disappear at that instant. But what I would like to drive at here is that essentially these automation projects are a partnership. They're a way for us to synergize with mechanization, with artificial intelligence, with machine learning and whatnot. Still, there is the importance of, or the essence of humanizing the roles of warehouse personnel, leadership inside the warehouse operations. And our role is basically to steer the ship to the direction where we want it. AI or automation is just there to accelerate or make the ship faster. Thank you, Max.
Okay. Thank you, Arnold. Shandan, 20 seconds.
Yeah.
Your final thought, yeah.
Yeah, just thought, like 4 points, like start small, think big, validate in a real condition, cross-functional buy-in, like where you bring in all the guys like IT or adopt the whole functional guys who is responsible for it and measure what it matters. So that's where you do AI integration.
Sachin, you want to add something else so we can finish up with you? Just a final word, advice from you?
I think everything is being covered. Just start from the problem that we want to solve and then go ahead and decide whether AI is the right one or not, because the ultimate objective is to solve the problem for the business. So that's my only take.
All right, all makes sense. Well, thank you very much, guys, for again being with us today. I think we kind of started to cover the topic. We haven't got into the details. I see that there are actually more technical questions on the Q&A, which we don't have time to cover. But no worries, we will probably, again, organize another follow-up session. So stay tuned for another date. Again, on warehouse automation, we like to actually kind of cover topics and then bring it to the next discussion again. So we're looking probably into a date in October where we can have, again, another discussion on the same topic. I want to thank all the audience also for their questions, for being with us today. If you missed part of the discussion, don't worry, we have recorded everything, and so the replay will be available in the next 24 hours on chain.net for all our members to access. So thank you again, Anirban. Thanks, Michael, Arnold, Shandan, and Sachin for being with us today.
Thanks, Max.
We have, if you guys, again, are interested in meeting and discussing common issues and problems and the big challenges of today's supply chain, we're going to have our next supply chain meetup on August 1st. It's actually next Friday, and you're all invited to join, and then we can probably cover more ground. We'll certainly talk about what's happening in terms of geopolitics and AI and all those different hot topics. And so we look forward again to have an exciting discussion. Again, August 1st for our next supply chain meetup. Thank you very much for attending. And again, we look forward to see you at our next event. Thank you, and see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.